Okay, let's unpack this. When you hear Wall Street, you probably picture, global finance, the markets. But here's where it gets really interesting. Its very first purpose, purely physical.
Right, not metaphorical at all.
Exactly. We're talking about an actual defensive wall, just 12 feet high,
Built by the Dutch settlers way back in 1653.
to keep rivals out. Simple as that.
Yeah.
So the question is, how does that become, well, this abstract symbol of global finance? That's our deep dive today.
It's a fascinating paradox, isn't it? You go from this tangible barrier, wood and earth, to this completely intangible idea of capitalism, of markets. And we're going to explore how, moments of crisis, innovation, and some really diverse people shape that whole journey.
So that first wall, interesting detail, it was actually built using enslaved African labor.
Yes, that's a crucial part of the early history.
And eventually it came down, the wall itself vanished, and the street, well, it turned into more of a commercial hub, busy, but not finance yet.
Not finance as we know it, no.
Yeah.
But the seeds were sown. If you connect this to the bigger picture, the real birth of structured finance here, it happened under a buttonwood tree, 1792.
You're a tree. Really?
Literally. There was a financial panic, things were chaotic, and 24 brokers basically said, okay, we need some rolls. So they made a pact, the Buttonwood Agreement.
What did it do?
They committed to only dealing with each other, and they set minimum commissions. It sounds simple, but it laid the groundwork, really the essential foundation, for what became the New York Stock Exchange.
Wow. From chaos under a tree to formal rules.
It was that first step.
Yeah.
From just informal trading to a structured market.
Okay, so the NYSE gets formally set up in 1817. America's starting to industrialize. Railroads are booming.
Right.
And that means a huge demand for capital, for money to build all this stuff. How did Wall Street handle that pressure?
Well, that demand, it absolutely fueled the rise of investment banking. We think of the big names, J.P. Morgan, obviously.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just them. You had innovators, people like Marcus Goldman, founded Goldman Sachs in 1869. He was pioneering new ways to, value companies. Pretty revolutionary stuff back then.
And crises kept happening, right? Like the Panic of 1837.
Exactly. And that panic actually led to something important. The NYSE started requiring companies to disclose financial information. It was a very early move towards transparency, towards protecting investors.
Yeah. And technology played a role, too.
Oh, massively. The telegraph, then the stock ticker.
Yeah.
Suddenly information could travel fast. It started to shrink that distance, conceptually at least, between Wall Street and, Main Street, making things a bit more accessible.
Okay, so growth, innovation, but also growing pains. The 20th century arrives and brings, even more turbulence.
Definitely. Big time.
Yeah.
You get the panic of 1907 pretty early on. The Knickerbocker crisis, they called it.
Knickerbocker crisis.
Yeah, you had these runs on what they called shadow banks, sort of unregulated lenders. Things got so bad that J.P. Morgan basically had to step in.
Yeah.
Acted like a one-man Federal Reserve using his own money to prop things up.
Just one guy holding it together.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And that crisis made it crystal clear. You needed something more permanent, more systemic for stability. Private wealth wasn't enough. And that led directly to creating the Federal Reserve System in 1913.
Right, the central bank. But even that couldn't stop what came next. 1929, the crash.
1929, that was different. It was fueled by just rampant speculation, people borrowing heavily to buy stocks, margin buying.
Creating a bubble.
A massive, unstable bubble.
Yeah.
And when it burst, it didn't just cause a crash, it triggered the Great Depression.
So the question became, how do we stop this from ever happening again?
Exactly. And the answer came through those big New Deal reforms. Things like the Glass-Steagall Act.
What did that do again?
Crucially, it separated commercial banks. The ones that take deposits from investment banks, the ones doing the riskier trading. The idea was, don't mix the casino with the vault.
Makes sense.
And you also got the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. That fundamentally changed the rules, the regulations on Wall Street.
Huge changes. But the volatility didn't completely disappear. We had 1987, Black Monday, a massive one-day drop.
Yeah, 22.6%. Huge. But 87 was different from 29 in how it played out.
How so?
This time you had swift action from the central banks. And importantly, new mechanisms called circuit breakers.
Trading halts.
Right. Automatic pauses to stop panic selling from spiraling out of control. It helped prevent a total meltdown, a long economic decline like after 29.
So some lessons learned, but then deregulation later in the century.
That's right. Towards the end of the 20th century, particularly repealing Glass-Steagall in 1999, That removed the wall between commercial and investment banking again. It definitely introduced new complexities, new kinds of risks, kind of set the stage for the 21st century's problems.
Which brings us closer to today. We saw the dot-com bust, then the really huge one, the 2008 global financial crisis.
Lehman Brothers collapsing.
Yeah.
Massive government bailouts.
Leading to yet more regulation, like the Dodd-Frank Act. It feels like a cycle.
It really does.
Yeah.
Crisis, reform, innovation, maybe deregulation, then another crisis.
Yeah.
And what's really striking now, today, is the speed, the shift to electronic trading, algorithmic trading.
High-frequency trading.
Exactly. It brings incredible efficiency, but also totally new risks. Things like flash crashes, markets plunging and recovering in milliseconds, too fast for humans to even react.
And how does the public see Wall Street through all this?
Oh, it's deeply polarized, isn't it? You had the anger of Occupy Wall Street pointing at inequality.
Yeah.
Then you have pop culture, sometimes glamorizing it, sometimes showing the greed. There's often this feeling of a disconnect, a real gap between Wall Street's world and everyday life, Main Street. It's this ongoing tension.
So, reflecting on this whole journey, from a dirt wall to algorithms, what's the big picture? Wall Street's clearly this engine for capital, innovation, but also this recurring source of crisis and public debate. It keeps adapting, keeps changing.
It did, and it leaves us with a pretty important question, I think. As finance gets ever more complex, more automated, more global, how does Wall Street navigate that role? Being a driver of the global economy, sure, but also dealing with these persistent issues of trust, societal impact. Its fundamental purpose, really. That's definitely something for you to think about.